You win that argument. Chris Paul's not that. He's not one of the 5 to 10 greatest players ever. Good morning. Welcome to the episode of Hard Foul Radio. Appreciate you for tuning in today. This is the show that values time. I value mine. You should value yours. So I appreciate you spending some of that value time here with me today. Unfortunately, we had no episode yesterday. Audio issues. Story of my life. We are back today, though. So we are kind of combining Monday and Tuesday's show into one. So please stick with me. We got to start off with, for recapping the weekend, obviously the biggest story was the Phoenix Suns sweeping Nikola Jokic, the MVP, and the Denver Nuggets. And this is a big story because the world is finally seeing Chris Paul for what he is, which is, and this is, I say in the most respectful way possible, a tier 2 Hall of Famer, one of the 5 greatest point guards ever, one of the all-time greats to ever play the game of basketball. Now, what do I mean by a tier 2 Hall of Famer? We talk about all these guys who have great numbers, or they have great seasons, or they have these great regular season careers, but they don't quite win a championship, so we just knock them down a peg. The problem with that is you must look at everything. Context. Who are your contemporaries? Who are your teammates? What conference, what division were you playing in? Chris Paul came in the league in 05-06, won Rookie of the Year right out the gate. By his third year, took the New Orleans Hornets to a number 2 seed in the West, only behind the Lakers, and lost to the Spurs. 2 dynasties of the 2000s, by the way. Chris has been criticized a lot over the last 5 to 6 years because of his lack of a title. The reason why that's such a stupid argument for players like Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony, Charles Barkley, some of these all-time greats who don't quite win the title, look what they have to deal with. Not only Chris's own franchises, which New Orleans was a shit show before he got there and a shit show after he left. That's the argument you all tell me why LeBron's great. Chris was supposed to go to the Lakers. That trade got vetoed by the NBA because Chris Paul and Kobe was considered to be too much. Then went to the Clippers, where while they did have star power, not enough actual. Blake Griffin and him had their issues. DeAndre Jordan was simply a pick and roll, could dunk guy, play defense. And then their bench, some years good, some years not. Then gets traded to the Rockets. Him and James Harden. That didn't work. Goes to OKC. They overachieved, but not enough there. And now his first year with Phoenix has them in the Western Conference Finals. And I have them as favorites versus either the Clippers or the Utah Jazz, depending on how that series plays out. We'll get to them in a second. The only reason why Chris Paul doesn't have a title, when he got into the league, I just told you what he had to deal with personally. The teams he was going up against, he's played against LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, 3 of the 6, 7 greatest players ever. A Spurs dynasty. When he came to the league, the Suns and Mavericks were winning 50 games every year. LeBron, obviously, been to the 9 straight finals. Played in the super team era. The Heat, the Warriors, never truly being on his own super team. I don't consider that Rockets team a super team, even though it was him and James Harden paired up. Just because you don't win a title when guys like Kobe and LeBron and Tim Duncan, Dirk only got 1 title. And Dirk's 7 feet tall and has an impossible shot to defend. Only got 1 title in 2011. Durant couldn't win a title until he went and joined someone else. Chris is the unquestioned leader of this team. And I talked about this before the season started. If you go listen to the Real Big 3, Will and I had this discussion. As good as Devin Booker is, and I'm a huge Devin Booker fan, if the Phoenix Suns are good, Chris will get the credit, and he deserves it. Because Chris is an all-time great, a top 5 point guard ever. He's just not, as a tier 2 Hall of Famer, he's not Kobe, Tim Duncan, LeBron James. You win that argument. Chris Paul's not that. He's not one of the 5 to 10 greatest players ever. That's where I'm considering my tier 1 Hall of Famers. But that next range of that 11 through 30, Chris Paul's there. And that's real good company. That's Kevin Durant. That's Dirk Nowitzki. That's Kevin Garnett. Those are the kind of guys Chris has himself with. Obviously, a huge Chris Paul fan. That's why I became a New Orleans fan in the first place many years ago. And it's really nice to see him finally getting the credit he deserves for being one of the greatest players to ever play this game. The point guard, man. What else can you say? Phoenix in the Western Conference Finals. I got them favored against the Utah Clippers. Now, speaking of Utah versus LA, I'm a big fan of underdog stories. I'm a big fan of work hard stories. I'm a big fan of hustle, grind, make it happen. And Utah is all of those things in one. Unfortunately, the way the world works, when you are the hustle guy, when you are the grind guy, when you are the work hard guy, you kind of do it because you know you lack in a couple other aspects. You're not the most talented. You're not the smartest. You're not the best looking. You're not the strongest. You're lacking somewhere, which is why you are working and grinding to overcome some of these other disadvantages you may have. That's Utah. Utah is a bunch of guys who work really hard defensively, move the ball, and play offense with effort and intensity. But the fact is, they're not more talented than the Clippers. Rudy Gobert can't make a move in the post, can't score unless it is a pick and roll, dribble handoff, and dunks the ball. They have spot up shooters who can't break down a defense and can only really score if the offense is working. And Donovan Mitchell, who I'm a big fan of Donovan Mitchell, but Donovan Mitchell is as good as he's been. There's just certain things he can't do at 6'3", 6'4". Let me tell you, the reason why Dwayne Wade is a superstar and one of the greatest to ever play the game is because at 6'3", 6'4", he could get to wherever he wanted on the court. Wasn't a great shooter, but he could get anywhere he wanted on the court. Mid-range, he could get to the lane, he could dunk on people. He could just always get to his spot and he could always score. Mitchell's a better shooter than Dwayne Wade, but at 6'4", he can't quite get to whatever spot he wants at will. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, when they want to, that's really the only issue with the Clippers, is they are a story of talent, but maybe not the effort. Mitchell can't score when they're really locked in on him. And when they're really locked in on him and he can't penetrate, he can't break down the defense, especially with no Mike Conley, you get games like last night where it's not close. The Clippers just flat out have more talent than them. And I'm going to go down, and like I said, I love work hard stories. I love grind hard stories. And that's what Utah is. Quinn Snyder is a coach, Gobert is a player, Donovan Mitchell is a player, Bogdanovich, Joe Ingles, like all these guys who are just working their ass off night in, night out, playing hard. And that's unfortunately when you get deemed a regular season team. In the regular season, when you can just out-effort people because not everyone's got it, guys are playing back-to-backs, coming in and out of different cities. But when it comes time for the playoffs, and when these superstars have to do it, which is what Kawhi and PG, when they have to do it. Also, most disrespected NBA player on the planet, Paul George, back-to-back 30-point games. No one's going to talk about it. Marcus Morris is shooting at an insane high clip. And the difference between what the Mavericks did in round one versus the Clippers when they shot really well, that was not their norm. The Clippers were the best three-point shooting team by percentage in NBA history. If you look at the game last night, they actually shot, in the beginning, in the first half, they shot better from three than they did from two. I like Donovan Mitchell, but he's 6'4", and he cannot break down a defense at will, especially against 6'8" Kawhi Leonard, 6'8" Paul George. I don't think the Jazz win another game in this series. Props to them. Great season, great style, great identity. I like Mitchell. I like Gobert. I like some of the other players. I like Quinn Snyder, the coach. But the fact is, the Clippers, more talent. They're superstars. They're bigger. They're stronger. They're faster. They're more talented. And sometimes when you're the grind guy, you just lose to that. It is what it is.